All right, now let's begin the review on our dailies, and we'll begin with Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And on page 20, the first story at the top, you'd see airport concession disquiet over petition against 3 bidders. The next story there, police recover 2 corpses of kidnapped butchers in Ondo. The lead story on Daily Trust, tree felling on the rise as cooking gas price skyrockets. You would also find the writer saying households, restaurants resort to firewood, charcoal. It's a threat to human existence. That's according to experts. The pictorial there shows you firewood along Munguno Baga Road in Borno State. Below that, tears as 10-year-old, 4 others die in Lagos explosion. And that's on page 40 of Daily Trust this morning. At the very bottom, hashtag EndSARS. US ask federal government, Lagos to ensure justice, compensation for victims. That's on page 6. For details of that story, you can pick a copy. Uni Loring expels students who beat lecturer to coma. And then you would also find Kano local government area chair leads mob to destroy reps project.
Interesting.
Sad. What on earth is going on? How do you explain that? A local government chair leading a mob to destroy a project by House of Reps member, whatever that reason could be, it must be very, very, I don't want to use the word, but
it's disheartening.
It's absurd.
Well,
I mean, these are people who are supposed to be partners. I mean, for crying out loud. And this happens. Maybe because
like
of political
crisis.
affiliation.
Exactly.
Or maybe some kind of rivalry or whatever. But to the detriment of who? Who suffers this now?
People.
It's really sad. And the one about expelling a student who beat a lecturer to coma, unfortunate. I heard about that story, about how that the student missed, I think it was an assessment that he missed, and then he went to the lecturer's office to request that he wants to, take part in the assessment, and then the lecturer decides not to give that opportunity to him, and then he decided to beat the lecturer to coma.
It's really a sad, really very, very sad story.
But let's take a look at more stories.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. On page 18, you'd find federal government plans $100 billion Nigerian-Brazil initiative on economy, food security. And on page 17, crypto firms practice high-level illegality, alleges Emefiele. Still on page 17, federal government blames theft, insecurity, others as oil production plunges. And on page 8, you'd find Gbajabiamila summons ministers ASU as lecturers threaten fresh strike. And the Punch newspaper is leading with Lagos hashtag EndSARS report. Federal government lists loopholes, UN, US, others demand sanctions. One of the writers is saying Sanwo-Olu advocates speed on white paper. Amnesty calls for prosecution of attackers. Another writer states there are inaccuracies in report. We await white paper, says federal government official. You'd also see a very sad picture there of the gas explosion that happened in Lagos, where 5 were found dead, 15 vehicles destroyed as phone call triggers Lagos gas explosion. There's been this conversation about people not using their mobile phones when they are close to, the gas, but a lot of us, particularly women, are guilty of that in our homes. Yes. We should be really cautious of that going forward. Now on page 12, you'd find 300 monarchs backing Tinubu for 2023 presidency campaign coordinator. That's interesting. You find the details of that on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. You'd also find on page 4, suspected herdsmen kidnap, kill Ondo butchers, tricked to buy cows. And on page 29, you'd see we appealed case of Nigerian Nigerian girl wrongly jailed in Cote d'Ivoire. That's according to the federal government. So these are some of the stories on the Punch this morning.
All right. Now, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The first story there says, Why ASU Can't Go on Strike by Nkike. The writer says, NASU rejects sharing formula. You'd find that on page 6. So that's the reason that we are now given for why the demands have not been met fully. So who is responsible for resolving those issues? We would find also IMF, e-Naira will cut costs of diaspora remittances. That's on page 5. Zenith Bank, CEO seeks synergy in lift economy. Uniloring expels students for battering female lecturer. That's on page 3. You would also find the governors insist on litigation to end Paris Club refund row. The lead story on The Nation, UN, US SANS to government, act on Lagos #EndSARS report. The PDP activists back punishment for indicted officers, CDS Defense Army. Well, the pictorial shows you that of the gas explosion where 5 people died and 12 people were injured, in that incident. That's that for The Nation newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the stories on The Guardian newspaper this morning before we begin the review. Court rules on suit seeking Soludo's disqualification November 30th. That's a new one. You find the details of that story on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. Still on page 3, you'd find Justice Odili. Wike demands immediate prosecution of invaders. You'd also find #EndSARS panel report. UN, US, Falana demand accountability. One of the writers states defense chief fault procedure of release, insists armed forces are professionals. Governor yet to read submitted report, says spokesman. Another writer is saying PDP demands prosecution of killers, collaborators. Apologize to Lagosians over Lekki toll gate shootings. Body George urges Sanwo-Olu. You'd also see ex-CDHR boss raises concern over Lagos committee to review panel report. These are some of the lead stories on The Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, so let's get perspectives on these stories this morning. We have in the studio Ali M. Ali, Editor-in-Chief, People's Daily, in the studio to review the stories with us. Good morning, and it's good to have you join us this morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's
Welcome
good
to
be
the
here.
program.
Good morning.
All right, now let's begin with some of the stories that we're getting that one will say heartbreaking stories, really. For me, the one that got my attention on Daily Trust newspaper this morning about the local government chair, leading a mob to, destroy a project by a rep member. How does that come to you?
Well, you said it all. It's quite heartbreaking. It's unfortunate and underscores the rivalry. Like they say, all politics is local. I don't know the details, but from the headlines, clearly it's very sad. And when 2 elephants fight, a common, which has become a cliche, is that the grass suffers. But you see, it's reflective of the kind of poor judgment on the part of leaders. And then also reflected of the intensity of passion, not reason, that drives some of our leaders at the local or even at the state level. Now you have a local government chairman, duly elected, not appointed, leading a mob. But some will say that it has been a trend in the past that been, especially in Kano. There was an instance, a leading government official in previous dispensation actually leading a mob to destroy alcohol at the time. He led a very visible, still very visible government official, led a mob illegally to destroy, because the state at that time still has banned, has has implemented Sharia, and part of the provision of the Sharia Act is the prohibition of alcohol consumption. The official then, who is still very visible now, led a ban and destroyed. So years later, we have a local government. Who knows what is going to happen next? But it is not out of place of late. And because over the years, this thing has prevailed without culprit being punished in the name of, well, differences in political persuasions, is going to fester, is going to continue because of political division in such localities. And like I said, it's reflective of the poor judgment on the part of leaders. When you become a leader, then you rise above the divisions. You don't look at the divisions. You lead people irrespective of their political persuasion. How much more when you're leading the community and then there is a difference and then provision, infrastructural development or whatever is being provided, then you lead them upstairs. You know, in saner climes, first, immediately the government should suspend the local government chairman. Mm-hmm. Then set up an inquiry, a panel of inquiry, and then appropriately mete out punishment. Or else the state government will be seen working hand in glove with the local government chairman.
You know, I would like to use the word that you use, insane climes.
Yeah.
Are we now gradually accepting our society as an insane society by virtue of these kind of happenings? Aren't we not going to do the right thing? I mean, what does it take really to do the right thing?
Let me quote the words of Ali Musri in the days, in this long three-part documentary, Africa, a Triple Heritage. Now, when he was talking about Nigeria, he said, under military rule, Nigeria inches towards dictatorship. And under civilian democracy, we inch towards anarchy. Now, coming back to the question, are we insane? Yeah. You will say most people controlling the levels of power are 50% outright insane. Some of the decisions they take, you begin to wonder. We've seen instances where, I'm trying to recall this French leader who said, I am the state is me. Most of our political leaders see themselves as the personification of the state. They don't make that distinction. And what they do or what they say remains law, and which is clearly in conflict with constitutional or legal provisions. You are only privileged to lead. So what happens now? We see instances where governors support the idea of impeaching a recalcitrant either speaker or a member of the state assembly when you don't even have a quorum. We've seen instances where speakers are impeached in the confines of a hotel room. You know, so you see,
for one disagreement or the other, with
precisely.
Maybe the
so where is the sanity there? We've lost most people controlling the level. Well, they say power intoxicates. That is the ultimate aphrodisiacs. And in Africa, and I'm talking about Africa, where people, let me just slightly digress. In Africa, the concept of opposition does not exist according to Obasanjo. He said opposition means enmity. If you are my opponent, you are my enemy, and I must destroy you. That is like you, in the course of this program, you were saying perception. To some people, perception is their reality. And perception is informed by all kinds of biases. Religious, cultural, they inform your perception. So now, we're saying, quoting the words of Ali Musri, we're inching towards anarchy. And clearly you can see we're almost in that state of anarchy. Because people, especially our politicians, are intolerant of dissenting views. In the same state, the leader, the number one citizen, asks the Speaker of the House of Reps to strip a recalcitrant member of the House of Representatives of his committee responsibilities. He is there in the public domain. He said, look, with this fella, is recalcitrant. Strip him of his committee chairmanship. And the speaker referred back, he said, look, appointing or committee chairman is the exclusive prerogative of the House, not belonging to state governors. So we've had that instances. In the same Kanu, I remember in the days of Rabi Musa Konkoso, he had a running battle with the then Speaker of the House of Representatives, Galina Abba, who had different political view from the same party, but because different leanings. And then that running battle cost them re-election in 2003. And now in 2021, we have a local government chairman just trying to sketch this picture of insanity, of people who are not tolerant of dissension. And this is democracy, one of which is the right to dissent. Let the majority carry the day, but the minority have their say. But we have, from the body language and the expression of those controlling the levels of power at various levels, local government, state, and even the federal, you see people not dissenting agreeably.
But doesn't this have a repercussion on the people?
It's already having repercussions, because if you destroy federal, constituency project, it's impacting. For example, if you are, maybe, I don't know, I've not read the details, but clearly it's something that is heart-wrenching. But imagine if you are destroying borehole in a state with a population of over 20 million or thereabout. And then borehole people, they're in dire need of potable water, and then you destroy that. It's affecting the people. So it's clearly, as much as you can disagree, but let it not descend to this reprehensible level.
All right, now we have also another story on Daily Trust here about Uni Ilorin expelling student who beat lecturer to coma. I don't know if you've heard about that story.
And I think that it's quite disheartening. But you see,
whether that expelling is enough,
I don't think it's enough, because you have to set a deterrence. We know, and then a university like University of Ilorin, if you know the history of University of Ilorin, is one of the most peaceful institutions, especially in north-central Nigeria. Some people want to argue that actually even the state belongs to the southwest. You understand? It's a predominantly Yoruba-speaking state, but a lot of other Fulani elements are there. But the point I'm trying to make is that is a slap on the wrist. Expulsion is not enough. He should be prosecuted to set an example. It's the universities where cultism has reigned supreme, where cultist university students, who presumably with the right training, they assume the mantra of leadership tomorrow. What they say, youth are the leaders of tomorrow, is it? That's the expression. Mm-hmm. Now, they're being trained. You're not just being trained for intellectual or academic prowess. You're also, your morality, is being shaped. And then here you are, because of some one or two disagreement, or then you take the law literally into your hands, and then beat your scholars to pulp, to coma. So to me, that was a very mild. It's a slap on the wrist after the expulsion. And look at even the language, that he's free to appeal. I think they're just doing the right thing. Maybe because now Big Brother is watching, maybe the US will take an interest in this, and then maybe the UN will take an interest in this. I'm just giving an example. And then people, before you know it, voila, they'll be shouting extreme measures. It's amounting to killing a fly with a sledgehammer. But to me, that is a very mild slap on the wrist. After the exposure, he should be prosecuted. The affected lecturer should seek redress in court, demand compensation. You understand? And then it also underscores the dangers university lecturers face in trying to impact knowledge, because they are not really protected from angry students, from cultists, and from all manner, even parents. We've had instances, what is happening here is very prevalent in secondary school. instances where teachers will threaten where parents will threaten teachers for failing their wards in secondary school, or they're bound to bribe their way through to get excellent grades. Then going back to the original question, I mean, at the onset of this review, are we insane? Yes, I think, honestly, that's the thing.
Okay, let's go the
Yes.
other way, this time around.
Yeah.
The student-lecturer relationship. Sometimes, in universities, we see situations where these lecturers become a threat to the students on the other hand, particularly, female students and all of that. In that situation, what are we supposed to expect? Because most of these people don't have a place, to report cases like this or retaliate in whatever situation that comes up.
And let me just recall the sting, well, some people say investigative report by the BBC on,
Sex for grades.
precisely, documentary. Some say it wasn't an investigative report, it was actually a sting operation. You set people up. But you see, there being some daring female students who have, in a way, recorded the sexual advances of their lecturers and expose them. So that is one way to fight it. You understand? Because now it's a digital age. People, you have spy pens with cameras, even reading glasses now. So I'm just recommending one way. But yes, this has been in existence from time immemorial. Lecturers, which is very reprehensible, very disgusting. Even back in the day, even in my time, before my time even, it has been a common practice, especially young lecturers, even those in their middle age, they've engaged in that. But it's only coming to the fore now because we are living in a digital age. Nothing is hidden. What you say now, back in the day we used to say, if you don't want it in the print tomorrow, don't do it today. Now, if you don't want it instantly reported on social media platforms, don't even contemplate doing that. Yeah, don't ever think of doing that. So really, but there are instances also the reverse is the case. There have been instances where we have, unfortunately and regrettably, for cultural reasons, women are seen as the custodian of morality. They're supposed to be morally superior to men. But there are instances where also female lecturers, they pose a threat to male students. Right here in our climb, making advances turned down. Some of them even married, for Christ's sake. I'm just giving an example. So some of us brought in the old school ways, that is it's a no-no. It's very doubly reprehensible. It's even unthinkable, but it's happening. Then again, going back to, are we really saying what happened to us? All of us. Here, north, south, west, east. What happened to us? You see, when you impart knowledge, the teacher is, if you like, an embodiment of all that is virtuous, all that is upright. It's even unthinkable that you make any kind of advances.
Now, we also have another interesting story now talking about, how important the educational institution is. One wonders whether we are really placing that relevance on it. When you look at stories like this that says ASU is threatening, to embark on another strike because government has now failed, to implement the agreements and all of that. And the Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige, is also saying that NASU has rejected the sharing formula, initially proposed, and which is why they are not able to. Is that a justifiable ground?
Well, you see, let me again use this. In saner climes, education is perhaps next to defense, is priority. It's top notch. It's there. Fund education. If you want to destroy a society, destroy education. Countries that have advanced, at the turn, in the early 1970s, Nigeria, along with the Asian tigers, was classified among the newly influential states. I'm going back to history to come to this, past now. where education now has taken backbench. And over the years, managers of our education, when I say managers, government especially government-funded universities, which should have been, like I said, really, the funding should be, no boundaries, literally, because institutions, educational institutions, post-secondary, tertiary institutions, they're there, titles of learning, research, molding character, grooming future leaders. During the regional government, ABU, for example, in the north, in the west there was University of Ife, now named Obafemi. In the east there was University of Nsukka. Some of the graduates that ABU turned out to be leading scholars, not just in Nigeria, in the whole of the continent, and even in the world. One of the teachers who taught in ABU only recently won a Nobel Prize for literature. So the point is, yes, I think the government over the years has neglected tertiary institutions, leading to our story past now. And that's why we've given rise to all manner of maladies bedeviling our varsities, from the students to instructional materials to research materials, and also to lecturers who literally have to do magic. For example, you have lecture theaters that are overpopulated, meant for maybe 40, 50 students. You have over 200 students. Some of them could not have furniture to sit on. So, also going back to strike, and you see, because government-funded universities in other countries, they are the preferred destination. Rarely people go to private universities. Even in countries that have, if you go to Malaysia, the universities of choice are government-funded universities for citizens of the country. Private universities, just like back in the day, in my time, nobody wants to go to private secondary school, at least up north, because they are not virtually non-existent. In the 70s and the 80s, and up to the mid-90s, if you go to private secondary school, unless missionary secondary schools. In Kano and in Kaduna, you have missionary secondary school, they have withered the test of time. They will remain, but with the underfunding of public universities and with the rise, some people say people in government actually help in the decapitation of public universities so that they will have their own private universities. And look at them. Among recent listing by the NUC, the top 10 universities in the country, none included a private university, notwithstanding the stupendous charges they make. None. Even if you go to law school, some of the guys who made first class, they're not from public schools. They're not from private schools. What does that tell you? That teaching in public schools, universities, is still top notch, top of the shelf. But this lingering crisis, and then the insistence of ASU, on the other hand, to be away, for example, IPPIS, which has been a major bone of contention. Mm-hmm. And the government insisting that we find instances where professors are teaching so many places, earning multiple salaries. But then really, if you look at the...
what I wanted to say is that, sometimes if you look at it, the take home of these lecturers,
yes,
if they don't, engage in getting multiple pays,
yes,
in different locations, is it even something that can actually take them home?
Yes, this is very important because when you choose to teach scholarship, you just want to, you're not there to make, you are there to groom, to impress on fresh minds. That's the pay you want. But then you also need to have survival wage. And they're not getting that. So you expect, unless you gotten to the state that you authored so many books, you get a royalty, you're comfortable, you can't even do research. And that's why we have so many professors in our universities. But they can't do research. That's why you go across the continent, go to other parts of the world. University professors, they're engaged in research, mm-hmm, and then they get paid. But here, we have too many PhDs doing actually very little. I've had instances where I have serve along as other PhD holders, professors, as resource person in workshops. And some of the things they're saying, well, I don't have a PhD, you understand? But sometimes I marvel at what they're saying, what they're turning out. So not having survival wage itself is negating the idea of scholarship. Because if you look at lecturers, compared to what lecturers are earning and what our members of the legislators are earning, it's in no way comparison. And then people say all the time that, look, we are desirous of developing. And then you're underfunding universities, you're overpaying legislation, and we shout about high cost of governance. We have a bicameral legislature. And then look at like this comparison. In no way you have a counselor earning twice the salary of a professor. Is there in the public domain? Or a local government chairman. So really, there must be a middle ground. I'm not the best to recommend what should be done. But first, look at the demands of us. In fact, salary is the least of them. They're asking for better
working condition.
Exactly, better working condition.
Right.
They're asking for greater funding for research, but then also in doing the research, they divide research grants. Is there? We think you've been given grant, but then if they got foreign grant, they don't joke with that because you have to account for it. You've gotten foreign grant, UNESCO grant, for example, to do research on infant mortality, and then you think you will just go on lesser Hajj, if you understand, and then that's the end of it. No, you have to account for it. But we have instances where abuses have been done to research grants, especially indigenous research grants. So there should be a middle ground. Yes, equip the university, better working environment, then salary, we can talk about salary.
Okay, now let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some more stories.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the Trust TV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search Trust TV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Is that the
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. Now, let's take a look at another story, that has been making rounds in almost all the newspapers nationwide. It's about the Lagos NSAS report. Now, the federal government has listed loopholes, but the UN and the US are demanding that sanction, must be implemented. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I think the judicial report, which is leaked anyway, is not yet official because the governor of the state said he has not read it. But even the idea of leaking the report is to pressure the government at the center to do what is right, recommendation of the panel report. One of which among the recommendation is to penalize most of the actors involved, the police and the army. And of course, naturally, you expect the federal government to fault it. The Chief of Defense Staff has faulted that. Defending the army, that is a very professional army, still maintaining that there was actually no massacre. Now, from the judicial report, you could say that, there was some sort of killing. At least 9 people were listed to either have been killed, deceased, or missing.
48.
48? Okay, 48.
Yes, then 11 dead.
Died.
Oh, 11 deaths. Okay,
Yes.
I must have read the
Yes,
wrong.
then the rest of them either
48.
missing
Injuries.
or
Okay,
injured.
48 deaths.
No, 11 dead.
11 deaths.
Then the rest either missing or injured.
Injured.
Okay. Now, among the dead, reportedly, is someone who is still alive. So that those who are sympathetic to the government, they are picking that as a loophole, that actually the report itself is subjective. But my own take is that there was finally, because of the report, I was one of those who was especially against the backdrop of the CNN report, which did not prove anything at the time, was skeptical of the quote unquote the massacre act. Massacre is a very strong worded, it's a very strong word. But now with the judicial report, which has the same powers of a court, then you can say almost the same powers, I think, with the court. You can say, yes, there was a killing, because it's really very difficult to invite the army and you expect there was shooting and there was no death. But if you can see from the account of, one of the celebrities at the time, DJ Switch, and then the reportage by the media, especially indigenous media, and then foreign media, and then the vigilance of other Nigerians, not other who wanted the truth. The report then, before this final judicial report, a lot of people took it with a pinch of salt. But now finally, this perhaps will rest the controversy. There was the army involvement, there was shooting, and there was death. And the federal government should stop playing ostrich as far as this is concerned. And I will also lend my voice to the idea of doing, executing the recommendations of the judicial panel to serve as a deterrence, because stuff like this are likely to happen again and again. If it's not NSAS today, it will be N something today. And then every now and again there is civil arrest, you invite the army. What do you expect? The army is not trained to engage citizens in any civil discourse. You understand? Unlike the police, for example. The army is trained to see everybody as an enemy, and you don't invite the army to essentially deal with civil unrest. In the United States, the Constitution of the America forbids the deployment of the army on the shores of the United States. And that's why they say, look, if in the event we have an uprising that is far too strong for the police to contain, then you deploy the National Guard. And we've seen that happen when there was a threat after the ouster of Trump, when the American Congress was assaulted by sympathizers of Trump. The National Guard was deployed. Numbering, staggering over 20,000 was deployed to protect the Congress, the U.S. Capitol Hill. Now, but here we have, the police clearly is not equipped, given our new challenges, new realities. The police is overwhelmed, is stretched thin, and also under-equipped, underfunded, and clearly not motivated enough.
You know, some of the issues raised in that report is that the deployment of, just like you said, the deployment of troops, in that Lekki toll gate was unwarranted, according to the report. And that, for what many people who were watching saw on TV, because like certain channels, even aired it live and everything. And at least a majority of people believe that it was a peaceful gathering, and that you could see people who were singing the national anthem, carrying the national flags, with the thinking that, chanting the national anthem is enough, to deter anyone who may want to harm, a gathering like that, but we still saw that shooting. I mean, it is now admitted that that shooting took place and all of that. What is Nigeria standing to risk, in this kind of event?
Well, a lot. First one of which is capital. A lot of people will be apprehensive in investing in Nigeria. All the time. Although recently the president was in France, he was in South Africa, after the climate change summit in Glasgow. And in France, especially talking about investment in Nigeria, the French could come invest in Nigeria. Well, they have substantial investment in Nigeria. But when the tragedy of third world countries is that you could be untwisted. That could be used to to bring you down on your knees, literally. Why? Because at a time like this, when Nigeria needs all it could get from the international community, then you have reports like that. In advanced democracies, advanced countries, you can't even think of not taking on account of human rights abuses. We've seen instances where the government of Russia had deployed maximum force to deal with either internal dissent. We've seen how it handled the Chechenian rebels. We've seen how, but the international community looked the other way around. No sanction was meted to. And besides, Russia has gas, was doing business. Nobody thought of that. We risk sanction. Already, the United States has been banding that those who are involved in electoral malpractices, either anywhere, they risk the sanction of first visa ban. I don't know, for whatever reason, the Nigerian elite that could be involved in electoral malpractice think that if it does not go to the United States, or if they don't go to the United States, they're missing heaven. There is that idea. One of the sanctions here. Then there will be military sanctions, no training for our armed forces, no sale of arms. At a time we are dealing with insurrection, insurgency, banditry. So these are all possibilities.
So what about the implication on this on Nigerians in terms of, we are already struggling with issue of trust between Nigerians and, and their government. So what's the impact of this, on regaining confidence of, the public on what government is doing?
Governments anywhere in the world, they are not trusted. very. So in Africa and in Nigeria especially, and especially this government, over time it has exhausted its large amount of goodwill and trust. One of the selling points of the incumbent president is his trustworthiness. Till this moment, there are people who think his integrity has remained cast iron, that his moral credentials are beyond reproach. But unfortunately, people don't think of his lieutenants as so. There are some ministers, people, when you mention them, they say, no, they are the very personification of distrust and lacking integrity, that their word is not their bond. Now, yes, with this development now, the distrust between government and the people would further widen. There will be lots of suspicion. All along, the government has not been level with the citizens. There are instances the government has said, look, we're not going to do, let me give you instances where the government has abused the trust. And the moment there is that disconnect, that contract between the government and the citizen is being undermined, then trust, and you need the trust of the people to do some of the things. Instances of energy costs. Government in the past has said, look, we're not going to review upwards prices of energy. Electricity, what is happening now? Cooking gas has gone beyond petrol, fuel. You know, even now in Abuja, until yesterday, there be long queues in anticipation of hike in fuel price, which is imminent anyway. So citizens should be very vigilant. So distrust, like I said, from for years, but with this government it has heightened. Why? Because we're in digital era, information age. Nothing is sacrosanct, nothing that cannot be violated. Memos, top secret memos, before you know it, somebody has screenshot it and then it goes viral. Right. And that doctored, they could be real, they could be forged. Nothing is impossible. So trust is certainly, and the government is not doing much. From where I'm seated, I don't see the government doing that much to gain the trust of the people. The government, regrettably, well, some people will say is doing its utmost best given the circumstances, but there is so much distrust between the media and the government. The government is not carrying the media along.
Right.
You understand? In other setting is agenda, you know. Under military rule, I've known the number of times the military high command, military rulers at the time, engaged media quietly to look, this is our position, even under Obasanjo. But really, the president, how many times has the president spoken to the people? For the past 7 years, he's only had one single media chat. And then his lieutenants, the ministers, how often do they engage citizens to explain something? So distrust naturally would, and then elections is around the corner. There are people sitting to unseat the president, his final term. And then there are also people who are trying to, as much as possible, to throw into the works, a spanner into the works. For example, there's this agitation and the president has said over and over that time he would leave at the end of his 2 term. But there are some people who are still cynical about that. Right. You understand? I'm just giving you. That's why the government is distrust. People are not really, and with this NSAS report, judicial report, whatever trust conscience left may have been destroyed.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for having
the discussion. Hopefully we'll have you again another time. All right. Now, we've been speaking with Ali M. Ali. He is the editor-in-chief, People's Daily, in the studio, giving us perspectives on the stories that made the headline.